What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and we're back with the playoff eliminator for Week 5. We are heading into Week 5, yes, and we have new eliminations and maybe some slight changes to the playoff picture. Let's get into it here. First, the teams that were already eliminated coming into this week, and I did leave Cincinnati off the video on accident last week. Cincinnati was actually eliminated last week, so these are the teams that are out of it. Again, every group of 5 team. Arizona State, Baylor, Boston College, Cincinnati, Georgia Tech, Houston, Indiana, Illinois, Iowa State, Nebraska, Northwestern, Oklahoma State, Pittsburgh, Purdue, South Carolina, Stanford, Texas Tech, Vanderbilt, Virginia, and Virginia Tech. So those teams already eliminated. How about the new eliminations this week? And several new eliminations, not quite as many I think there was last week. We have Arkansas losing to LSU. They're now done with 2 losses. Cal has now lost their second game. Clemson loses their second game. It's a team that you maybe could see come back from the dead. I don't think a 2-loss Clemson team is going to have any shot. But if we get chaos, maybe. But I feel like it's pretty safe to go ahead and eliminate them. They do have some opportunities down the road with some games. You know, if Miami turns out to be really good, you've got that game. You've got North Carolina. You got Notre Dame. And so what they're going to need to have, what they'll have to have happen to get to the ACC championship is Duke is going to have to lose 3 games. They're going to have to lose 3 games, or Florida State. I don't see that happening. So if Duke loses 3 games, Clemson wins out, they have a really good shot. I think North Carolina is actually in the best position to play Florida State in the ACC championship, at least based off of the schedules. But Clemson, if they were to get there with 2 losses, win the rematch against Florida State, maybe there's a path for them. But I just think there are too many good teams this year. Michigan State's out of it. Minnesota, how about them blowing that lead against Northwestern? Didn't expect to eliminate them this week. Mississippi State loses to South Carolina. Second loss for them, and then Rutgers losing to Michigan. So all these teams now have 2 losses. And again, Clemson's the only team that I think you could give a 0.0001% chance that they could get back into the playoff conversation. But I don't see that happening. All right, next we got the teams with 1 loss that are still alive. Alabama, Arizona, Auburn, BYU, Colorado, Florida, Iowa, Kansas State, LSU, NC State, Notre Dame, Ole Miss, Oregon State, TCU, Tennessee, Texas A&M, UCF, UCLA, Wake Forest, West Virginia, and Wisconsin. So all these teams very much alive. I think most of these teams, if they went out, would be in. You wonder about some teams in the Big 12. You know, would it be enough? BYU, if they were to win out, could they get in? Kansas State, same story. I think the Pac-12, a 1-loss Pac-12 champ's going to get in. A 1-loss SEC champ's going to get in. A 1-loss Big 10 champ is going to get in. ACC, Big 12 conference is not quite as strong, so I don't know for sure how that would play out. But they're definitely still alive. There's definitely a path for all these teams to get there. But they're not. I'll just put it this way: they're not in control of their destiny. All of these teams might need a little bit of help. Some of them need some help. Some of them don't. Like Alabama, if they win out, they're going to be in. Tennessee, if they win out, they're going to be in. And again, I feel like even Oregon State out of the Pac-12, if they win out, they would be in. So teams that are still undefeated. Yes, we now have this graphic for you. Still a lot of undefeated teams out there, and these are the Power 5 teams. Yes, I know there are some Group of 5 teams still undefeated, but those teams have no chance. There's no path for them. I just don't see it, even if they were to go undefeated. But you've got Duke, Florida State, Georgia, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisville, Maryland, Miami, Michigan, Missouri, North Carolina, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Oregon, Penn State, Syracuse, Texas, USC, Utah, Washington, and Washington State. Again, all of these teams still undefeated. Not really, I guess, if you look at the schedules, I don't think there's any huge surprises here. Syracuse, maybe you would have thought that they would have tripped up by now. Washington State has played a couple of tough games, and yet they're still undefeated. That they've been a surprise, but overall, no real shockers here. I guess, Duke, most people didn't expect them to beat Clemson, but let's move on now to the playoff picture. As we've looked at the new eliminations and the teams that still have a chance, these, in my opinion, are your top contenders. And again, not my predictions, just based off of basically the favorites winning out. These teams are in the best position to get to the college football playoff. Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, and Florida State. Penn State, USC, Oregon, Texas, and Washington. And yes, I do have Oregon in this category now after their win over Colorado. You could even argue Utah has a better chance than USC, or they've been playing better than USC, especially when they get Cam Rising back. But if you just look at how the schedules play out, I think USC, Oregon, and Washington have a little bit of a better chance in the Pac-12. But these teams are your top contenders. The dark horse teams at this point: Alabama, Oklahoma, Notre Dame, LSU, North Carolina, and Utah. Again, these are the teams that I think definitely have a good shot. I mean, if they win out, they're going to be right there. Utah, North Carolina, if they win out, Oklahoma, they're going to be in the college football playoffs. So these teams all with a really good shot to still get there. Again, season far from over for some of these one-loss teams like Alabama and LSU and even Notre Dame. These teams, again, in a good spot if they can win out and finish strong. So this is the updated playoff picture. Still feel like Georgia. Most people expect them to be that #1 seed. Winner of Michigan, Ohio State at #2. And then perhaps Texas and Florida State, the favorites in the ACC and the Big 12. Maybe one of those goes to 3, one goes to 4. Again, that's if the Pac-12 is not there, because I think the Pac-12 is going to beat up on themselves. And I think that's kind of how it would look like, too, if you just look at the favorites. Because you've got, they all play each other. And, home team's probably going to be favored in most of those close games. But USC, Washington, Oregon, and again, maybe I should have Utah in here as well. It's kind of hard to put them in here when the offense has been playing the way that it has. But when they get Cam Rising back, I think that could definitely change things. And then Penn State's just kind of sitting there. If they finish with one loss, maybe they don't go to the Big Ten Championship, but if they finish with one loss, they could get there. Or perhaps, based off of what we've seen, maybe Penn State needs to be on that #2 line with Michigan and Ohio State. Maybe it's just whoever comes out of those three. I've got Penn State as the #1 team in the country, so putting Michigan and Ohio State above them is not necessarily what I would do. But again, I think they're going to be underdogs against both Michigan and Ohio State. So that's the updated playoff picture heading into Week 5. We might see some upsets this week, but overall, I don't think a lot's going to change with the playoff picture unless we do see some of those upsets. So we'll see what happens on Saturday, and several good games on Friday night as well. But your thoughts on the playoff picture, let me know down in the comments below.